Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. Look for The Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Angel on Top. A few announcements before we dive brains first into Blind Date.
We are approaching the end of season 1, and what a journey it has been. Along with Buffering the Vampire Slayer, we will be taking a summer hiatus starting in late May. On our next episode for the season 1 finale to Shanshu in LA, we will have Kristen Russo on as a special guest to look back on the first season as a whole, and then we will break from putting out regular episodes until we return with season 2 when school is back in session in September.
However, even though we're taking a break from our regular episodes, this does not mean that you will be losing us entirely. We have some fun summer plans in store for our Patreon supporters. Once a month this summer, we will launch our new segment for Patreon supporters called Angel on High, where Laura and I will watch and discuss a Buffy episode that was pivotal to Angel's arc while sampling some completely legal California herb.
Our Sicker Sadder World listeners know this became somewhat of a tradition once a season as we rewatch Daria, and now we want to bring the same lighthearted, stoned revelations to our angelic friends. We will post Angel on High episodes for Buffy's surprise, innocence, and becoming 1 and 2, so that we can ground ourselves while high in Angel's greatest hits before his own show began.
This summer, we will also be hosting Loveline-style Q&A live streams where our listeners can write in about any interpersonal or emotional struggles they'd like advice on. And if you've been a listener for a while now, you're very aware of our love for self-inquiry, vulnerability, and emotional wellness. So we thought we'd take the opportunity this summer to become our own versions of Brené Brown, Don Miguel Ruiz, and Esther Perel, and offer insight and advice to anyone who feels like they need a friendly ear.
Full disclaimer, neither of us are trained mental health professionals. No. Shocking, I know. But we hope to function as a couple of friends with whom you'd feel comfortable seeking advice.
We will also be posting some video content exclusively for our $10 patrons. And finally, we will spend the season preparing some special treats for you come September, including a surprise bit of new merch and a chapbook of all the season 1 poems.
Welcome back to Angel on Top, a podcast where we watch and discuss every episode of Angel one by one, spoiler-free, and in tandem with Buffering the Vampire Slayer. I'm Laura Zach.
And I'm Brittany Ashley. And this week we're watching Blind Date. Stick around until the end of this episode for an original poem written by us through the perspective of Angel, who has a whole lot of feelings to write about this episode. Also, we have a very special treat this episode. We reached out to Jennifer Badger, who played Vanessa Brewer, but who has also done stunts for Angel and Buffy, and has also done so many stunts in her career. She's worked on so many films, television shows. It's absolutely insane how prolific she is. But we reached out to her with some questions, and she got back to us with some answers, and I'm going to read those later in this episode, so stick around for that.
Blind Date was written by Janine Renshaw and was directed by Thomas Wright. It aired on May 16th, 2000.
This is the one where a renegade attorney from Wolfram Hart joins forces with Angel to stop a blind assassin from killing 3 children who threatened the firm.
It's also the one where literally everyone has sexual tension.
Every single person.
I love that fresh off of our episode with guest Ira Madison III, we get to focus on cute boy Lindsey McDonald.
We sure do. He certainly has this arc and a backstory that we obviously never got before. We just thought that he was kind of like a pretty evil guy. Pretty, evil guy.
Yeah, and he totally has that type of appeal. Like if you were into JTT.
It's the hair. It's like the middle part.
Like apple pie handsome.
I don't remember if we talked about it on this podcast or if we talked about it on Buffering, but he originally auditioned for the role of Riley on Buffy, but didn't get it. And Joss liked him so much that he gave him the role of Lindsey. But I imagine...
I can totally picture him as Riley.
I think that I would have liked...
I think he would have been more likable.
Yes, same. And I think that Mark Blucas would have played a good Lindsey. I think that I would have actually really appreciated a Christian Kane Riley and a Mark Blucas Lindsey. I think it would have worked for both characters. Because, like, even though Christian Kane is, like, very attractive, he has like an evil quality to his look, so babyface that he could be fucking evil, whereas Mark Blucas like doesn't look evil at all. And so I think it would be like a cool reversal if Riley had more of like a menacing look to him. I think it would make Riley's character so much more interesting. Whereas,
I can see that.
And if like Lindsey had like the Mark Blucas look, I think he would appear more sympathetic right off the bat.
Can you imagine waking up in a parallel universe where you didn't know it was a parallel universe until you happened upon an episode of Angel and realized that was the only thing different in the universe, and to see what the butterfly effect would be just by reversing these two actors in those two roles? Like it could be that like Michelle Obama was president right now. Like who knows what would be different.
It also maybe would have been that Christian Kane would have maybe never been on Dawson's Creek. Mark Blucas would have probably lived a much easier life had he not been stamped with being one of the most loathed characters in the Buffyverse.
But for what it's worth, for our purposes, I'm glad that Lindsey is played by Christian because
he's a great actor.
He's a great actor. And I actually thought across the board there was very good acting in this episode. I thought Holland was incredible.
Yeah.
The scenes between Holland and Lindsey were incredible. Pretty much everyone at Wolfram and Hart I'm down with except for Lee.
Ew, Lee. Yeah, that's why I did not shed a tear.
So yeah, let's get into it. We start with some army men. Little live action Toy Story for you. Just this innocent, unassuming blind woman with her cane walking through. Cut to Angel beating up some vamps.
Yeah, just usual business, taking on 2 vamps at once. And then he hears a man taking his last few breaths. Turns out that blind woman actually an assassin. I think one of Joss's favorite things to do is to place someone that you think is unassuming in a place of danger, and then have them actually be kind of like the perpetrator. And
hence the entire premise of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and we saw that obviously like in Buffy just as a whole, and then the opening scene of Buffy as well with Darla kind of being the actual one who was going to kill this teenage boy who we thought was the menacing one. Like he likes to do the reversal of like, no, this is actually the person who is evil. And the fight scenes between Angel and this woman who we come to realize is Vanessa are fucking bonkers. Like they seem like they're fast forwarded like 2 speeds. Like the moves are so tight. The moves are so quick, and that's obviously a testament to the fact that Vanessa is played by Jennifer Badger, experienced and talented stunt woman.
She was a stunt woman for both Cordelia and Faith on both Buffy and Angel, and then she went on to have a prolific career. She's in the new Avengers movie. We were looking at her IMDb.
Yeah,
and
she's stunt coordinated and stunt double, like everything, so many things. It's insane. She's had an incredible career.
But you make a good point, because I guess I don't really think about how much the production has benefited from the rare treat of having the person who can do their own stunts playing the role, because I certainly in both Buffy and Angel can usually pick up on when they're cutting to the stunt double and cutting back to the actor. And sometimes it's more obvious than other times.
Sometimes it's comically obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of a sudden, Sarah Michelle Gellar's physique is completely different.
Yeah.
But in contrast, seeing Jennifer, doing her own stunts allows for this flow of the scene that we don't often get to see.
And she also started her career as an actor as well. And so this role just made so much sense for her to be on camera as a character and then also be doing her own stunts. Like it was just the perfect marriage. And something that happens in this scene is that her fashion glasses get hit off her face. We see that her entire eye, like pupils included, are all this like translucent white.
That combined with her strength is what leads Angel to believe that she is not
demonic.
human.
Yeah,
She's
totally. Fun fact, special effects supervisor Lonnie Perister says that they couldn't afford to shoot Vanessa's perspective using green screen, so instead they came up with the crazy idea of painting the actors with glow-in-the-dark paint and shooting the scenes in the dark. So the scenes were like we're in her perspective and we see kind of like what we believe is like the movement of the other person that she's fighting, like Angel. He was wearing glow-in-the-dark paint and they shot it in the dark. And the effect was intensified by offsetting the footage to create tracers and then reversing the images. Quote, it was supposed to tell the story that she sees the action before it actually happens. It was such a wacky idea and it worked out really well.
Was such a wacky idea their quote or yours?
Theirs.
Okay, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah,
but
what if we just turn off all the lights, put some rave makeup on David Boreanaz, and then just had him lean back and forth? I would have killed
do some of his
that.
she dancing.
Yeah. But after that fight, I mean, our baby boy is winded. And we cut to the credits.
And then we get Wesley and Cordy doing some investigating about what sort of demon this woman might be. And Cordelia has the idea of looking up to see if she has a record, which, I mean, seems like maybe they would have started there.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're so used to
just dealing with supernatural.
Right. And I think like a lot of the thesis of this episode was that sometimes humans can do more damage than demons can because they're kind of like, that's the real evil is people who have souls who do horrible things, primarily Wolfram Hart. They realize that her name is Vanessa Brewer and she is currently on trial for homicide. And guess who she's being represented by? Pro bono. Pros bones.
Little hottie, Lindsey McDonald. But also they see that she has a bit of a record, but she's never been convicted of anything.
Right.
So it's implied that someone is taking care in the back end. Mm-hmm. Very quickly it's resolved how that's happening. It's that she is represented by Wolfram Hart, which of course always implies something else going on, that she's maybe working for them. We see Angel bust into the courtroom.
Lindsay's in the middle of pleading to the jury that she couldn't have possibly done this because she has a disability, which yeah, that's like his defense the whole time. Like, how could you possibly say this about my client? She could have never committed something like this. And so Angel, to prove that she could do something like this, the glasses that fell off of her, he takes and he chucks. He knows that she's going to catch them because she has like a foresight in a way. And that kind of reminds me in the Buffy film when Merrick, he throws the knife at Buffy and luckily she catches it. But I just imagine this alternate universe where like these two scenes went horribly awry and Angel just goes in there and chucks sunglasses at the court. And then everyone's like, what the fuck was that?
He ran into the wrong court by accident and just chucked glasses at like a sweet
judge.
lady.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, God, what a dick. I'm surprised they didn't go for that gag. That actually
Totally
feels in line with a gag they would do.
They love a good gag. But anyhow, after the trial, Lee, truly my least favorite character thus far in the Angelverse, is back. And he's standing way too close to Lindsay. He's like fetishizing Vanessa. It's just like a perfect storm of like, I can't wait for you to die.
But also he clearly is attracted to Lindsay. No one needs to stand that closely.
Yeah.
And also the way he's talking sexually about Vanessa reminded me of like 40-year-old virgin. Like her breasts felt like bags of sand. Like
right?
he was literally like, there's something kind of hot about her. I wouldn't say no. Like it literally felt like someone who has no sexual desire, like performing attraction.
Totally. Like I watched American Pie. Like,
right.
Yeah, he's like trying to connect to Lindsey, and Lindsey's like, no, I fucked. Leave me alone.
Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then Vanessa looks over and Lee's like, I think she likes you.
Yeah. But Lindsey and Vanessa, when they're saying hi to each other, I mean, obviously they've like met each other before. Obviously he was her lawyer. There's like a lot of sexual tension
constantly in this episode. Sometimes it's not reciprocal. Well, I guess sexual tension implies that there is a inherent reciprocation, or at least the way I'm talking about it, there is. But almost every scene, with the exception of just the scenes at Angel Investigations where they're figuring shit out, anything to do with any of the Wolfram and Hart characters, there is some sexuality in every single scene, whether it's one-sided or reciprocal.
Yeah, I think the director of this episode, Thomas Wright, was a little freak. Yeah. He was like, all right, now play this scene like you both want to fuck each other, but you can't.
Every single scene, though. We'll get into it, but everyone has like their own specific tension, and it's fascinating. And it also makes me feel like, especially once you meet Holland, the big boss.
Yeah.
Like everyone at Wolfram and Hart is gay, or like everyone at Wolfram and Hart is queer, because there's this vibe to everyone.
Well, I think that it's less about the gender. I think it's about the power and what they recognize. I mean, and obviously that's like a huge part of the episode as well. It's like, who wields the power and how can I get this power from you? And how do I like assert my dominance over you? And it's so...
Well, it reminds me of that scene. Did you ever see Angels in America when Al Pacino's character is hospitalized with HIV/AIDS, or someone's trying to get him to admit that he was gay, basically, to admit that he contracted this from having sex with a man. And I can't remember the exact quote, but the gist is, he's like, I'm not gay. I just fucked this man. You know, like this whole orientation. And jumping ahead a little bit, Holland at the very end of this episode of Angel talks to Lindsey about, it's not about good and evil. It's about the power. And there does seem to be this culture at Wolfram and Hart where they defy typical binaries to do whatever it is, whatever it takes. Popular morality or popular ethics or whatever you think like the limit would be for someone doesn't apply here.
Right. Like even like Lila trying to lure in Faith. It was like, yes, there was like a sexual tension there, but it was like the best person to try and lure in Faith is obviously going to be this woman, but this woman has no sense of like solidarity or camaraderie because she doesn't even tap into like these human parts of herself. She's just trying to do exactly what she can to get Faith on board to kill Angel. The mission is the only thing that matters for them.
Right. And I think that there's sort of something required in anyone who would work at Wolfram and Hart. There's something about their character that like has this quality in them that they are willing to do whatever, and they don't necessarily have a strong identity or a strong sense of their own compass, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to make it there. And we see this episode that Lindsey's compass is being tested.
Totally. And so, yeah, Lindsey and Holland are having somewhat of like a review that like we can't really tell if it's like going horribly or going insanely well. Holland is very hard to peg. But Holland is saying that, you know, quote, this is the time that we separate the winners from the dead weight, and that he wants to see Lindsey succeed. And it looks like he's about to go into kind of like this monologue of like, yeah, you know, I'm at this age where I'm wondering, like, is this all there is? But then Holland just like shuts him down completely and says, the world is designed to those who know how to use it. And it's just obviously somewhat ironic to hear two straight white cis guys kind of talk about how the world is designed when they obviously have such a limited scope. We're meant to believe, given these two people's identities, that they don't really know how the world exists for other people, and that the world is kind of designed for them to succeed, really, and that they have to take advantage of that.
Well, I think we see later that Lindsey has a little bit more understanding of that because of his background in with poverty.
Right, but we're like meant to believe from their identities in this moment that like they are the ones who are supposed to kind of like succeed in this world the way that it's designed.
It's convenient rhetoric that like they believe that they are the chosen one when really it's all of these privileges that have gotten them to this place.
It's like the systemic structure.
It's the whole like raising yourself up from your bootstraps type, like American dream type myth without taking into context everything surrounding you.
Yeah. But we get kind of what the next Wolfram Hart mission is, which is that there are some children who are arriving who pose as a threat to Wolfram Hart, and that Vanessa is going to like take them out, I guess. And Lindsey is like, children? Like
cool. Okay.
Yeah. Like we're starting to see that even though Wolfram Hart has done like some horrible things, Lindsey kind of is starting to draw the line at like, oh, like children could be harmed. Okay. Yeah, no, for sure.
And then we get to see Angel truly having a little emo temper tantrum. I don't know. It just felt so disproportional.
It did.
He deals with injustice every single fucking day. He already knows that the systems that are in place for humans are not actually delivering justice.
Yeah, dude,
that's
you've
why
been
he's
alive
necessary.
for 247 years. Like, how is this news to you?
Well, that's funny that you say that because it reminded me of the experience of witnessing someone, usually someone who has been blinded by their own privilege, becoming woke in a way, like realizing for the first time how fucked up things really are and being like, did you guys know about this? Yeah. I'm just a cog. I mean nothing. Whatever I do, it doesn't matter. The system's in place and it's about power. It's not about truth. And Cordy and Wes are like, yeah, bro.
Yeah, we kind of knew this all along. Yeah, after he throws his landline against the wall, he is returning from basically the trial. And he also says that there's a hung jury and that she was acquitted. But a hung jury results in a new trial, not an acquittal, you stupid idiot. But anyways, he's enraged because he realizes that no matter what is actually fair within the justice system, that it's so broken that those who have money and privilege and power usually can bypass what others cannot. And obviously, like, Angel can't testify, with a jury. He probably wouldn't be taken as a serious witness, but also he like truly can't testify in the light of day. He starts to like go into this ideology about how there's these people out there that can do horrible things and not feel bad about it. And he says, I miss that clarity.
Yeah, this was such a weird
beat.
Yeah, he already felt overly emotional for his character given what was happening, but then to go so quickly from that to go to like, oh, I really just miss being able to be evil and not caring about it.
It made me wonder if he believes that Liam and Angelus had more in common with the guys at Wolfram Hart than he's willing to admit.
Well,
usually.
I mean, that would make sense though. The ferocity of his reaction here, it makes sense that it would have a personal basis, that he's projecting that he is actually angry with his past self and ashamed of his past actions when he's not cared.
When the veil is lifted on how the world is set up and how there's little that you can globally do to kind of fix these like large issues, there is like a hopelessness to it. And there is like I wish I could just like glide through the world with these blinders on. But because he's so drowning in guilt all the time for what he's done in the past, he like physically can't bypass it. So just as he says, nothing ever changes out loud, Lindsey comes in and like a laser beam just locks eyes with Angel and says, I need your help. And honestly.
And then he says, I want out of the closet.
Which makes me feel like he's a little bit.
Well,
Boreanaz?
He definitely feels a little bit bi for Boreanaz. And this feels like a really good moment to introduce our sweet, sweet listeners to our newest jingle. Lyrics written by Brittany Ashley.
Thank you so much.
Jingle composed by the brilliant Jenny Owen Youngs. Please enjoy. Bye for Boreanaz.
He's got a broody stare and hot spiky hair. If you're straight or gay, your tingly feelings don't care. You're just being honest about this sexy demonic in your bye for Boreanaz. Bye for Boreanaz. Bye for Boreanaz.
Bye for Boreanaz. Oh, she did such a good job with that.
Yeah.
I will say that of all the scenes of sexual tension in this episode, I mean, if we were to have our own sexual tension awards, it would be between this scene and then later the scene with Lindsey and Lila. But this scene is just
dripping.
I mean, Angel talks about what Lindsey smells like. Lindsey knows all about Angel's background and Dad's history. He's been reading up on him.
Well, okay, so the thing that like slightly didn't track for me is that Angel just had this manic breakdown about how everything is hopeless and the world is set up to fail. And then like the key to this is someone who's working on the inside who can make some change comes in and is basically like, I'm willing to help you make the world a little less hopeless. And Angel's like doing a gag of like, oh, he does like a total middle school move where he's like, oh, I'm sorry, what year is it? Like he pretends like he's asleep while Lindsey is giving this like impassioned speech about how he grew up in poverty. And like Angel is basically just being like very childish when an answer is right there, like dropped into his lap.
But he also doesn't trust that he's for real yet.
Yeah.
I think that's just him not believing it's true yet. Like we as the audience have the privileged perspective of having seen what Lindsey just went through and seeing his conflict. But I mean, this is fresh off of Lindsey trying to have Faith kill Angel.
That's true.
But I will say, I mean, to your point, once he comes around to believing Lindsey more so, or at least being willing to give him a chance, I am surprised at his attitude toward Lindsey versus how he was with Faith. Because in some ways, you could almost see this as an analogous situation, that it's someone who is ready to get out of a
cycle in a way.
Yeah, and in a bad lifestyle and, you know, wants to leave that in the past and be rehabilitated. And Angel had so much compassion for Faith in that regard because he related to her struggle, but he doesn't seem able to do that for Lindsey. And I'm not sure why that is. Like Faith has tried to kill Angel so many times. It's obviously not just about like...
Yeah, she's objectively done more damage to Angel's personal life than Lindsey has.
Right, and the people close to Angel.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why he can't throw him a similar bone.
Yeah, and like look at those soft aquamarine eyes.
Time for some schematics of how to get two men into a vault.
As Lindsey is trying to help Angel Investigations get into Wolfram Hart, he says very prominently, the righteous shall walk a thorny path. And I was like, okay, I got to look this up. It's probably like Leviticus 10:17 or some shit. Turns out
it was Leviticus 10:18.
It's now the title of a lot of Lindsey Tumblr erotica.
No.
More like the righteous shall walk a horny path. Am I right?
Can you read some?
Okay, so revealing whose perspective this would be from would be a spoiler, so I'm going to keep that a secret. But basically, this is like erotica from someone's perspective about Lindsey. Lindsey had spent his time relaxing and doing things that could help him find himself. He wasn't completely sure why he stood up. Part of him hated her, but part of him loved her. She's probably the only one in that hellhole he could say that about. Oh. It's more like dramatic erotica, which I find more erotic than sexual erotica.
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich,
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
actor Ewan Ryan,
For an actor, that's a dream, although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
and so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
People will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't you love it when you find a new podcast you really like? Well, let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm Mike Carruthers, the host, and in every episode, you'll hear fascinating information that will make your life better from top experts. Recently, we've done episodes on why you have the personality you do, the science of luck, and the psychology of a restaurant menu. You're going to like Something You Should Know. We have literally thousands of 5-star reviews. Look for Something You Should Know wherever you get your podcasts.
So we get quick confirmation that the end of last episode worked out for Angel and Gunn, because now we just kind of get dropped into Angel going to Gunn for help and Gunn being down for it and them sort of making jokes and Gunn being like, why should I help you? And Angel saying it's going to be extremely dangerous, and that being enough for Gunn.
He's like, okay. And then he flashes a sweet little smile. And so now it's Operation Insert Clever Name here. And Lindsey is in this weird level of the building, and he runs into Lila, who also seems to be doing something kind of shady.
Yeah, they both seem nervous coming in and out of the records room.
It kind of like made me feel like they are two coworkers who like slept together once and are just like trying to keep it cool.
But
when they,
also
like,
are
run
still
into
attracted to each other.
Yeah.
And it's like the equivalent of Grey's Anatomy, the rooms that they would sleep in. You know, the different characters would sleep with each other in like the rooms that you're supposed to take a nap in. The records room maybe is a place they have history.
Totally.
And he pretends to be going into the records room. And this whole montage is kind of like classic beginning of a heist vibe.
Yeah.
Like,
Angel is blowtorching something underground in the tunnel because he's going to obviously go up through the tunnelway. He's got a suit on. Gunn comes in playing this like extreme character, making a scene. And honestly, given what happens, it doesn't even seem like that was super necessary. Like,
I mean, it feels like maybe telling that it was a white writer, that they
totally
have a scene where a black character would go into this type of environment where there's white security officers with guns
as
and
if
make
like
a big
he has
scene.
the power in that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like and just be kind of blasé about it when he's in very real danger. But you know, you're right, it didn't end up being necessary. I was glad to see him. But,
Totally, yeah. I think maybe they were just trying to find a way to like integrate him to be like, okay, Gunn didn't just go away after this last episode. He's actually going to be a part of this. Yeah, like it just felt weird that they were like, okay, the only way that we can distract the security at the front is if you do this really stereotypical character monologue and we distract them by dragging in this bag full of vampire.
Couldn't you just drag in the vampires?
Exactly.
To begin with?
That's what I thought was like, that's what could have happened anyways, because they had to do that because there's this little creepy thing that sits in the corner. The shaman. It's like an alert system set up for when there's a vampire in the building. And what was that magic dust again that Angel blew into that one dude's face?
I don't remember. In
What?
this episode?
You don't remember that? Yeah, the guy who...
You don't remember that? You turned into like Fozzie.
Yeah. That's what happens sometimes when people don't remember magic dust scenes. Like where the tapes were and where that scroll was. And there was this kind of demon.
Oh, it was that other
appeared.
demon. And then, I do remember.
And then he went...
Yeah, I'll take out the part of me not remembering.
You should keep it in because you need to show the fallibility of being a human.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Angel, he grabs these tapes, these like confidential tapes.
Conveniently labeled.
Yes. He also grabs this scroll that wasn't part of the plan, but that's what triggers the gates to kind of come down. He almost gets stuck in there.
It's almost like a sword in the stone moment. Like he's
Totally.
called to take it. And it's because he takes this scroll that the alarms go off. And he calls Lindsey and is like, it's done. Get out now.
And that means that they have each other's numbers. There's a scene that we didn't get to see where they're like, hey, dude. So yeah, like just for like emergencies, but like, what's your number?
Oh, yeah. I guess for the purposes of this mission, for this heist mission, we should probably, just have the digits. I'll probably delete it right after, but just emergency only.
Yeah. And it's funny that in the last episode, Angel's team got down on him for being like, buddy, you got that cell phone. You can use that cell phone.
Interesting that now he doesn't have to think twice about remembering to use it.
And it's crazy that he got service in that tunnel. But either way, Lindsey is trying to get out of there as quickly as he can. However, he's a little too late because they're doing a sweep of the office and they brought in mind readers. They have this like cool Grace Jones meets like Black Panther vibe to them.
Yeah. And they feel like extremely fashion queers.
Yes. I loved them so much.
Oh my God. Obsessed. And it again, further, I felt supported my theory that Wolfram Hart is a queer institution.
Yes.
Like all of their supernatural assistance is like pretty fluid.
Mm-hmm. Holland kind of brought them in to figure out what happened, who has been betraying them, and there's this like misdirect of Holland going up to Lindsey and being like, this is a shame. This disloyalty hurts me personally.
Again, a lot of eye contact in this episode.
Yeah.
He's looking deep into Lindsey's eyes. So he's indicating, he's kind of flagging like, I know what's up. But then he turns to Lee and says, I'm so sorry, Lee. And apparently, and this wasn't untrue. Like, I think the mind readers informed him of 2 infractions at the same time. Lee had been in secret talks with a competing agency and was basically considering leaving.
Yeah.
And Holland has him killed, shot dead, and calls it termination.
I think it was like a warning shot to Lindsey to be like, this is what happens.
This is what we're willing to do.
Yeah. When you betray us, but instead of just killing you, it's more beneficial for me to kill this fucking doof to show you that I am willing to do this to you unless you turn your shit around.
Wasn't Lee the one that got his ass kicked by Faith?
Yeah.
Too? He has not had a good run.
No. Poor guy. But Angel's back at the office. He's like, Lindsey? Where are you, Lindsey? Sweet Boy's looking for Sweet Boy. But when he shows Wesley the scribe, Wesley is like, is there a reason that you took this? Like, obviously you had this other mission to do. And Angel really has no idea why he took it. Cordelia gets started on seeing what's in those files and the tapes, and they're all encrypted. But guess who can help fix that? We got a little baby crossover. Yeah.
As soon as I hear the words encrypted files, it's like muscle memory. I'm just like, Willow?
Yeah.
Willow?
Totally. Fun fact. I was reading on, I think it was IMDb or Wikipedia, whatever one. Okay, so Cordelia phoned Willow to hack codes and find information on Vanessa Brewer, and it's implied that Willow and Tara were at the very same time working on getting information on Adam through hacking seen in Primeval. However, this timeline is somewhat skewed because Willow finished hacking those files in Primeval less than a day after Angel left Sunnydale. Angel returned to LA before the beginning of Warzone, and Warzone itself spanned at least 4 days. This means that Willow had to have been done hacking Adam's files before the events of Warzone were over, and therefore long before this episode even began. Whoever figured that out is genius.
Oh, I thought you had figured it out. Did you see my look of awe? I take it back.
No, still look at me that way because I found it interesting enough. So that is just like a little timeline fudge, but that's going to happen. While Cordelia is on the phone with Willow, my favorite part was when it's assumed that like Cordelia is getting this like intel of like,
totally. And then she's like, hit file.
Yeah. No. And then she's like, Willow says, hey.
No, totally. That, but then also the fact that the things that Willow's telling her to do are like, all right, left click. Okay, I got it. Like as if that's all you need to do. It's like, all right. So I say file open. All right, cool. And then left click. Oh, I did it. We're in.
But you also got to remember in the year 2000, I mean, none of us knew what the fuck we were doing. There were no shortcuts. We did not know. Also, fun fact is that Willow, who's played by Allison Hannigan, and Alexis Denisoff, who plays Wesley.
Oh, I thought about that too.
Yeah, well, they started dating shortly after he left to go on Angel. So it was kind of a cute little
nod, like
your girlfriend says hi.
Oh,
isn't
so
that cute?
They have fun over there.
They really
Angel
do. Speaking of fun,
I would love to have some fun. What did you have in mind?
You wanna
what, Brittany? Flirt, understand, consent,
and kiss.
And kiss?
Yeah.
Yes.
Flirting, understanding, consent, and kissing. Flirting, understanding, consent, and kissing. Fuck watch.
Welcome to Fuck Watch, the segment where we decide who from this episode we would most like to flirt, understand, consent with, and kiss. Brittany.
Thanks for that intro.
I don't know. I just think sometimes
it's always good to remind.
Yeah, and we got a lot of people asking what the lyrics of the jingle were.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just like to, remind people or new listeners, everyone is welcome.
Yeah. So
you seemed pretty psyched on your pick. I haven't heard it yet, but I can tell there's a little glimmer in your eye. So I'd like to hear yours first.
Oh, that was just me crying. Just kidding. So I had an initial pick. Sometimes you think that you've made the right.
I also have a first and then latter pick. So go on.
Sometimes you see something and you're like, mommy likey, but then something better comes along and you're like, oh wait, mommy lovey, this one instead. So initially, I don't know if you remember in the first scene that there's this really lovely toy salesman who moves the toys out of the way for Vanessa as she's walking. He doesn't make a big show of it. He calls her miss and not ma'am. And he just wants to quietly help Vanessa out on her walk across the street.
His love language, acts of service.
Yeah. And he, I'm very gay, but there is some like little attraction to this type of male who kind of perhaps resemble like if I was a dude who I would be. He's like a progressive grungy surfer bro whose name would probably be like Travis, and he has like long hair and he has like tattoos and he like probably smokes cloves and he's just like very chill. And he was like,
this is so funny because you're also attracted to women that are like you.
Yeah. It's all a reflection of self-love.
Yeah, here we are like really doing a great job of breaking that stereotype of lesbians. Also, I think the qualities that he has are when we talk about winning the butch off for the butch off.
Totally.
Are those qualities.
Yes.
It's not about what you would stereotypically necessarily think are connected to masculinity, although some of the things are like strength and capability and all these things that are like stereotypically assigned to cis men. But it's like this accommodation and anticipating a need and do it like being chivalrous, but not from a place of I need to take care of you, but from a place of I just want to be a blessing.
Yeah. So like it was Travis in the beginning.
But sorry, Travis.
But then the mind readers came in and Mama was like, what?
I mean,
because like
can't resist.
Yeah. I think I'm equally terrified as I am aroused by mind readers, because just like imagine being intimate with a mind reader.
That was my thought as well.
Like they would know exactly what you want. You wouldn't have to say it. But then in my
it could be stressful though.
That's where the equally terrified parts come in, because it could be like, what I'm actually thinking about. But I mean, it could be an incredible experience, and they would just like give you everything that you need that you're afraid to say, and they would just be able to anticipate exactly what you want. And also they were very beautiful.
Yeah, they were extremely hot, androgynous queens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
So I also had a journey I went on. My first pick was, in fact, Lindsey, who I don't believe I've picked yet this season. And I guess Ira really got in my brain last episode when he made the bold statement that Lindsey is the hottest guy in the Buffyverse. And I've just been thinking a lot about Lindsey since then. And then when I rewatched, I don't know, I guess I specifically mean good Lindsey, because it's sort of like who he had the potential to become this episode, who we kind of saw glimpses of, but unfortunately, as we'll soon see, maybe doesn't commit to it. But then the mind readers came into the picture.
They really just changed everything.
And what queer women can, resist that? There was this composed, powerful grace about them. I loved their fashion. Like, it almost reminded me of like Tokyo fashion, like just so ahead of the curve. Like, even now, that those outfits would just kill. And like these beautiful,
New York Fashion Week called They Want You to Walk.
Just these beautiful androgynous women with powers. And I do wonder, though, do you think there's anything about their power that requires both of them to be together? Because otherwise they would just use one at the office. So what I'm thinking is that if it would be too much pressure to be intimate with someone who could read your mind, maybe if we both,
like a double date?
Yeah, if we went on a double date and then after, had private time separately, then maybe it wouldn't be so intense. Like, maybe their powers separate are not the same. I do feel like I would feel a lot of pressure to perform. Like, I would want them to have a good experience too. And given that they would be so in tune to what I wanted, I would feel like a little bit maybe overcompensating, because I'm like, oh, I can't read your mind. I'm sorry, babe.
But I think maybe that's what, I think oftentimes they might see it as like a curse. And they're like, no, I love that you're like actually normal and can't totally read my mind. I love the human error.
Right. It's like the one time in a relationship where I can't read your mind, it actually wouldn't apply.
Yeah.
Like, they would be like, no, I can. And yeah. Well, solid picks, I would say, for both of us.
Yeah.
In a very sexy episode. So there were a lot of choices.
Yeah.
Flirting, understanding, consent, and kissing. Flirting, understanding, consent, and kissing. Stopwatch.
There's this really funny line that Angel and Cordelia kind of have a moment with, and they're like, what are the odds that Willow and us, we're all just like encrypting files right now? It's like, yeah, wild. They're reading Vanessa's file, and it turns out that in her story, she created her own disability to be able to be more in tune with like her kind of like intuition. The purposefully selected mutilation that results in a disability, I feel like, is a very specific representation that is probably not helpful.
And we also get a scene with Holland. There's so many Holland and Lindsey scenes in this, but this one where Holland basically conveys that he knows everything. He knows everything Lindsey did. He knows that he's been working with Angel. And it really shows how he feels about Lindsey versus how he feels about Lee. Like, I think that Lindsey's kind of his pet. Like, maybe he sees himself in Lindsey.
Oh, he sure does.
He might be, he might be attracted to Lindsey, all of these things. It did have this vibe of almost like you could see it going in a sexual harassment direction. Like, he was very like, do you believe in love? I don't mean romantically. I mean for yourself. Like, he basically has this definition of love that is defined as finally finding your place in the world. And he really, I think, feels like some sort of paternal figure to Lindsey and believes that he knows what his destiny is better than Lindsey does and wants him to get there in the realization as well. And so he is pushing him to look deep into himself. But we then see the scene of Vanessa about to kill these children. She kills their watcher, or the man who is caretaking them.
Foster daddy.
Their sweet dad. And is about to kill them. And then Angel and Lindsey jump in. So we quickly get the resolution of the answer to the question about Lindsey. He still, for now, is fighting on the side of good. There's another epic fight scene.
And Angel has kind of like figured out what he has to do to not be kind of like traced by Vanessa. I mean, he has no heartbeat. He like has no warmth. So he's able to be somewhat undetectable. And, you know, these kids are just like straight up chilling. I don't think they're scared. I don't think they really like know what's going on. Because they're just kind of like, okay. And he ends up stabbing her with her own walker. And then we cut to the scene of Lindsey just like hugging the kids and telling them that they're going to be okay. And if I were one of the kids, I would be like, excuse me, who the fuck are you? Why are you holding me? What happened? Can anyone tell me?
Right. They just heard a lot of crashing.
Yeah.
Although their power has been described as being able to see into the heart of things.
Aww.
So there's a prophecy that they will contribute to taking down Wolfram Hart one day, which sucks because that means that Wolfram Hart is going to be thriving for at least another decade or two.
Right. These kids are young. Back at Angel Investigations, Wesley asks Angel about that scroll again because he started to translate it. And he's like, yo, man, there's an entire passage about you. It tells of a vampire with a soul. So in some way, you kind of knew to take this. Like it was kind of your destiny in that way. And he says this quote about how there's a design hidden in the chaos and you have a place in it. And similarly, when Lindsey goes back to Wolfram Hart and he's in Holland's like big ass office, Holland is packing up all of his own things. And he kind of echoes like the exact same sentiment. And he says that we're all a part of something larger. It's not about good or evil. It's about who wields the most power. And he is basically telling Lindsey, like, I'm packing up all my shit. I'm going upstairs. This office is yours if you want it or not. But I think that you're changed now. Like something in you now has like more power than you did before. And we need someone like you. And this is a huge raise. I'm offering you the world. But there's also some level of like manipulation that I think that evil people do where they're like, listen, we're the same. Like, I'm really bad. I know you're bad. And basically, like, you can be this true self of you, which I see as bad. You can be that person if you just stick with me. He just reminded me of an ex of mine.
Well, and also the implication that being good or making ethical choices is actually harder because you have to struggle within this quandary of like caring about what to do versus only caring about getting power.
Right.
And I mean, the straightforward, taking the path to that.
And that's, I mean, if we're looping back to kind of what Angel said, where he's like, you know, talking about the existence of there being no consequences to horrible things that you do. And I miss that clarity. It's kind of a similar thing of what Angel was talking about, which is like, when he was in Jealous, he could do these horrible things and he could just keep rising the ranks of his own power and he didn't have to feel bad about it. There was no moral quandary. And that's kind of what like the Wolfram Hart dudes are doing. It's basically like Angeluses in Suits.
And the fact that Wesley discovers that Angel is specifically written about in the prophecies of Aubergine is pretty cool too, because we now see that both Angel and Buffy are chosen ones in some way. So that could also contribute to the nature of why they are soulmates.
Oh. So then we're kind of left to believe that maybe Lindsey is going to take this job.
I think so. Yeah. And he sits down at that desk.
Chair, that's a really comfy swivel chair. He raises his hands against that counter, that little counter. What is that, marble? He swivels around to that beautiful skyline and he's like, I could get used to this, baby.
Really? Because I think the inner monologue was, wow, this desk is so nice. I wish Angel were here. I bet he'd really like this desk. And then we cut to Angel on a rooftop thinking, I miss Lindsey. I wonder what he's doing.
Well, there's something very romantic about like, hey, we're looking at the same sky.
And in honor of this beautiful last pair of moments. One more time for good measure.
He's got a broody stare and hot spiky hair. If you're straight or gay, your tingly feelings don't care. You're just being honest about this sexy demonic in your bye for Boreanaz. Bye for Boreanaz. Bye for Boreanaz.
So as I said earlier, we reached out to Jennifer Badger with some questions that we had for her about her time playing Vanessa Brewer on this episode of Angel, but also for just being a stunt woman in general, as well as working on Buffy and Angel. And she got back to us with some answers, and so I'm going to read those for you now. You started your career as an actor, but then transitioned more into stunt work. Can you talk about what that was like and what attracted you to it? Jennifer's response was, I began acting when I was 13, and I worked on multiple shows for Nickelodeon, ABC, and PBS. I did both character acting and served as a spokesperson. I'd always been a tomboy and an athlete, so when my mom saw an ad for a weekend stunt workshop in Tampa, I jumped right in. Later, I was able to see that mostly everything we were taught in that workshop was wrong. However, it did help me learn of an opportunity to audition for a live stunt show, the Batman stunt show at Six Flags Over Georgia. When I auditioned they hired me on the spot, not knowing that I was only 16, but I was able to get a work permit and traveled to Atlanta for the season. I trained with the more experienced stuntmen and realized that I preferred stunts or action acting over being an actress in itself. When I was 17 and working that show for my second year, I was called to stunt double for Angelina Jolie on the film Hackers. So I worked my first film in New York, performing rollerblading gags and riding a motorcycle. I was very driven and marketed myself to shows all over the country. In 1996, I was offered doubling portions on the first Scream film, for which I ended up being unavailable, and the movie Anaconda. A few years later, I was happy to double for Courtney Cox in both Scream 2 and Scream 3. My career kept rolling from there. And then our next question was, in this episode, Blind Date, you play a blind assassin named Vanessa Brewer. What do you remember about the makeup? What do you remember about the contacts that you wore in your eyes? Also, was it difficult to detect the other actors' motions in the fight scenes with the contacts in? Jennifer's response was, I had to wear 2 full Scalaro contact lenses to achieve that blind effect, and I was truly blind in them. I only wear contacts for jobs like these, so my eyes aren't that used to lenses, and by the second and third days, I had trouble looking out straight without my eyes constantly running. This is why when I shake hands in the office and I'm led away, my eyes kind of drag downward. It looked weird in a good way in the footage, but was not intentional. For the fighting, we had lots of rehearsals without the contacts, but when it came time to fight with them in, it was a lot of muscle memory and trust in my fight partners. I was able to position myself in relation to where there were light sources, so in my mind, I mapped out where to be for each fight piece based on that. Otherwise, the crew was very nice about escorting me over and around objects as we made our way to and from set when I had the lenses in. It was a fun experience, and I was very grateful that the creative producers, director, and stunt coordinator, Spyro Rosados, allowed me the opportunity. The next question. Do you remember any anecdotes from set on this episode? Her response was, when I go to the apartment to kill the 3 kids, it was funny because I had actually been sick prior to that and I'd lost my voice. The director wanted me to sing 3 Blind Mice while I approached them. I'm no gifted singer, but I can carry a tune. However, my voice was so scratchy and messed up that it was horrid. We agreed that they could loop the tune later if desired. What was your favorite aspect of working on Buffy and Angel? Everyone on the cast and crew were very nice to me, and that made a great set and work family to be a part of. Honestly, Jeff and Sophia were my favorite parts of working on the show because they believed in me enough to give me a start on the show, and they continued to encourage me and allow me more opportunities to grow and learn. There wasn't a lot of female support in the stunt industry at that time, so Sophia's kindness to me was especially appreciated. Also, Jeff was never down on anyone and gave his team every possible chance of success. Not all shows are run that way. Additionally, I usually keep a low profile on set. I'm a bit of a quiet personality, so it meant a lot when I'd come in and the actors and crew would greet me by name. Can you recall which other characters in the Buffy and Angelverse that you did stunt work for? Do any pivotal scenes stand out to you? Jennifer's response. Some people teased Jeff and Sophia for having me on in so many roles, but Jeff said that I was dependable and reliable for getting the stunt work done and having good etiquette on set. Between seasons 1 through 5, I doubled for Cordelia, for Faith, for Willow, for Anya, for Drusilla, and a ton of episode characters like the Mummy Girl or the girl escaping from the frat house in the Snake Boy episode. She said, I think that was the name of it, to which I say, So close, Reptile Boy. I enjoyed doubling for all of them, but I was a really close match for Charisma, and they could shoot me face on as the Faith double because we were so close once hair and makeup were matched. On a side note, I've doubled for Eliza Dushku on other shows like Alphabet Killer and the last season of Banshee. One of my favorite gags was doubling Faith up on the roof when Buffy stabs her and then she climbs up to the ledge and falls backward off the building into the back of a truck that's driving by. We all remember that scene. What was your relationship with the other stunt performers like? Were you your own family unit within the production? Jennifer's response. It was a pretty great and supportive environment, especially with the regulars. Jeff never was negative, and he really didn't allow gossip or anyone who might undermine others to be a part of the regular group, so his leadership really fostered a positive environment. There was also such great talent there. Jeff and Sophia both are extremely talented, but then you also had crazy good martial artists and athletes there that, for me at least, I was left looking up to the others and wanting to cheer them on. What was the most challenging stunt you recall having to perform on a Buffy or Angel set? Jennifer says, I'm a little bit of a control freak, so not just on this show, but when I've done similar gags on other shows, it's always a bit daunting to be thrown into a stunt or not have any real control over your own safety. An example might be in the first episode, Angel, when Angel picks Cordelia up and jumps off a balcony with her. Angel's double, Mike Massa, was literally carrying me in his arms and stepping up to jump off with me. He did fantastic, but had he tripped as he stepped up, it could have put us off course for our entire box catch below. I've been picked up and tossed into a bunch of gags over the years on Buffy, Angel, and other shows like The Punisher, and that is always a bit more scary to me. And lastly, after telling Jennifer how much we loved these fight sequences, she wanted to point out that the fights on this episode were choreographed by Michael Vendrell, who passed away a few years ago. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was such a very cool thing to hear and to get our questions answered. Jennifer has been a part of the stunt work of so many things. Please check that out. I mean, even if you just go look at her IMDb page, she has done so many things that are coming out in the next few years, including Avengers Endgame. She is credited as a stunt double and a stunt performer. And truly, I can't wait to see everything that she's in and just love her and her work so much. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Angel on Top. I'm Laura Zach, and when I'm not, bye for Boreanes. I'm usually being a content-making gay. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, or check out laurazach.com for more.
And I'm Brittany Ashley, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brit27Ash. And this summer, you can check out the second season of another podcast of mine called Don't Tell the Babysitter Mom's Dead, a grief and pop culture podcast where I interview other people who have lost their mothers. It's available on iTunes and Spotify, and you can listen to the first season now if you want.
You can follow Angel on Top on Instagram and Twitter at AngelOnTopCast. And you can email us at angelontoppodcast@gmail.com.
And we'd really appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes. It's how other people find the podcast, and really it just makes us feel good. And now, please enjoy the poem for Blind Date from Angel's POV. Blind Date. Business as usual, alley battling vamps, till mortal victim meets untimely demise. Looks are deceiving, his assassin demure. Her skilled combat takes me by surprise. Despite my courtroom interruption, proving to all her agility, Lindsey convinces the judge of her intrinsic fragility. Another killer walks free thanks to those morally malnourished. When the truth is oft trampled, greed for power has flourished. How can I save a world thus corrupted? Existential musings are rudely interrupted. A plea for help, sob story, my father evoking. If this guy thinks I trust him now, he's gotta be joking. But a man on the inside is just too appealing, and 3 young lives are worth unlikely alliance. Schematics, a blowtorch, and guns lobby diversion manifest rogue lawyers' quiet defiance. Marble cell contains records and secrets. My eyes veer towards mysterious scroll. Classified tapes are too easy to take. Gates shut down, detecting I stole. Back at home base safely, just as we scripted, we hit a snag. The files are encrypted. Seeking the help of a strange computer prodigy, we locate our target thanks to Willow and also to technology. Blind assassins speed rivals that of a bullet. To reach defeat, I must be quiet as a whisper. One swift blow, she's down. I've rescued little ones, who are no older than my late little sister. After translating scroll, Wes finds answers that seemingly all point to yours truly. A passage about another chosen one. In this world, I have a place. Absolutely.
Welcome to the small town of Chinook, where faith runs deep and secrets run deeper. In this new thriller, religion and crime collide when a gruesome murder rocks the isolated Montana community. Everyone is quick to point their fingers at a drug-addicted teenager, but local deputy Ruth Vogel isn't convinced. She suspects connections to a powerful religious group. Enter federal agent V.B. Laureau, who has been investigating a local church for possible criminal activity. The pair form an unlikely partnership to catch the killer, unearthing secrets that leave Ruth torn between her duty to the law, her religious convictions, and her very own family. But something more sinister than murder is afoot, and someone is watching Ruth.
Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you know what lies within nothing?
No.
Do you know where it ends? Do you want to know?
Yes. Counterbalance, a high fantasy audio drama. Season 2, coming 15th of October 2023. Learn more on trilunas.com.